Oh, hello there. And we'll let some people filter in. Oh, hello there. Wherever you're listening, however you're listening, joining us on the Reality After Show YouTube channel or over on Twitter at Gabe Ortiz. We love you all the same wherever you choose to be tuning in today. So, before we get into tonight's episode, be sure to subscribe to the Reality After Show YouTube channel. Go ahead and follow me on Instagram and on Twitter so you can stay up to date with all the cool stuff that we're doing over here on the Reality After Show. And as new Survivor season is right around the corner, summer is flying by. We're about to wrap up the first week of August. By the end of September, we'll be talking about Survivor 49 each and every single week. So very excited to do that. Also going to be doing, of course, Gabe's Big Move throughout season 49 and season 50. Still working out on what that's really going to look like, to be honest with you, because I want to keep doing these evergreen type topics like we're going to talk about tonight and get started talking about in just a few minutes here. But I like doing these bigger philosophical things. I don't want, every episode of Gabe's Big Move, once a season's airing on TV, to just be about that season. I'm going to be doing recaps with Johnny as well anyway. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I think I'll keep doing these evergreen things. Maybe I'll try to find some way to tie whatever that week's episode is into the topic of the night. Find some happy medium. As you can see, what we're talking about tonight is going to be the right move, but the wrong time. It doesn't even matter if you make the right move, if you make it at the wrong time in a game of Survivor. And this is a story that I think is as old as the game is. People who have these big moves that they want to make and that actually have some sound strategy behind them, but they ended up making them a little too early or maybe a little too late. I think more often than not, they end up coming a little too early, and it ends up being what prevents them from winning the game. What would have put them, or what they were at least hoping was going to put them in great position to win the game, ends up actually being what keeps them from winning the game. So I want to break down some of those examples throughout the history of Survivor. And please, throughout the show, leave your comments in the comment section. Go ahead. Let me know any good examples you can think of players that made good moves but made them at the wrong time and it ended up coming back to bite them, or just any general questions you have about Survivor, reality TV, my time on 47, whatever it may be. Go ahead, drop a comment in the comments section. Again, whether you're joining us on the Reality After Show or on Twitter on the live stream there, you should be able to interact with the comment section on either platform. So getting into this topic of the night, Survivor's funny because I think a lot of people like to equate it to like a game of chess where you're the player and you have all these different pieces on the board being the other people that you're playing with. But what makes it so different from a game of chess is that same or similar moves can have wildly different outcomes, right? Like if I move a pawn forward, it doesn't matter which pawn I move forward. It doesn't really even matter unless it's turning a pawn into another piece on the other side of the board. It really doesn't even matter where on the board I move that pawn forward. It's all the same. The pawn's moving one space forward, two spaces if it's the first time that pawn is moved. If I move a knight, it's always going to move in the same pattern, whether it's forward, left, right, or backwards. It's always moving the same way no matter what. But in a game of Survivor, if you lie to somebody about having an idol, if you show somebody that you have an idol, if you try to flip a vote on a certain person, while the skeleton of all those maneuvers in a game of Survivor are relatively the same, the outcome can be wildly, wildly different. Depending on the trust level you have with that person, depending on the dynamics within your tribe, depending on what phase of the game you're in, right? Are you pre-merge? Are you a round or two before the jury? You could call it mergatory. Are you at the very end? Your perception as a player can wildly alter the outcome of a move. Are you perceived as a big threat? Are you somebody that people aren't really worried about and you're looking to establish yourself within this game? Are you an out and out goat? Are you seen as a wild card? Somebody that people don't really want to trust? All of these things can wildly affect the kind of move you make, even if it's the same exact move that somebody has made before in the past, or even the same move that somebody has made on your season. All of these things matter. So if you're going to make a big move, there are things you need to do before you actually do that. First one, and this one should be pretty obvious, right? Is you have to read the room. You have to be able to understand how are people going to receive this move I want to make before I bring it up to any of them. If you're doing this right and you're doing this well, nobody's reaction to your pitch should surprise you. If you truly have a good read on the game and a good read on the other people that you're playing with, when you go and you say, hey, I want to flip on this person, or hey, we should target this person, or hey, I want to use this idol in this way, nobody's reaction should really surprise you. You should say, oh, she reacted this way. Yeah, okay, that's about what I thought it was going to be. He reacted this way. That's about what I thought it was going to be. And if you're pitching this move to people and you're getting all these reactions that you never anticipated, your move's probably not going to work. If you don't even know how they're going to react to you trying to sell the move to them, you damn sure can't be sure that they're actually going to follow through with it on you. So that's part one. And that happens before you talk to anybody. Part two is when you're actually putting it into effect. You got to go make sure that you have the numbers, which again, I know seems obvious on its face, but securing numbers is much more difficult than it looks. No move can happen without the numbers, obviously. And the third one, and this one I think is the most ambiguous of all these steps, is you need to be able to manage the fallout. Not just manage the fallout, but anticipate the fallout. And this one is tough because you never truly know what people's plans are in a game of Survivor. You can think you do, and sometimes you might be right, but you can never with 100% with 100% certainty understand what people's plans are and how other players fit into those plans. And so this is the toughest part of all of this because, and particularly with the theme of tonight's episode, right move, wrong time, not being able to properly anticipate and then manage the fallout of making a big move can send you home. And in some of the examples that we're going to break down over the course of tonight's episode, that's exactly what happens to a lot of people who play this game, a lot of really talented Survivor players who play and fail to win, is because they failed to anticipate and then manage the fallout of the move that they made. And if you don't have any piece of that triangle, those three steps, either your move's not going to work in the first place, or maybe even a worse outcome, you're going to get sent packing next. Make sure you can read the room. Be able to accurately predict how people are going to react to the presentation of this potential move that they can be a part of, that you're coming up with, you're putting your name on. Obviously, make sure you have the numbers so it can actually work. The logistics of it need to work. You need to have the votes. And three, anticipate and be able to manage the fallout of what you're about to do. So let's start with a new era example here. I call this era the geriatric new era, 41 and 42. I think they're geriatric new era because yes, they are the new era. And maybe you could put 43 in there as well, but I don't think I would. I think I would reserve this for the first two new era seasons because it was the very beginning. It was the inception of this. And I think that a lot of people, if you think about 45, 46, 47 versus 41 and 42, it does kind of feel like a different era of Survivor, even though it's only a few years between them and it's all under the umbrella of the new era. It's within the first 10 seasons of the new era. It does have a different feel to it. I don't want to get too deep on a tangent, but this is geriatric new era in my book. And I don't say that as an insult, geriatric, elderly, whatever. It's just a generational thing, right? Let's look at Shannon Ricard. This is, I think, a classic case of right move, but too early. Shan understands as she's getting deeper into this game that Ricard is one of, if not the biggest threat to go win the whole thing. He's moving very deftly throughout the rounds of the game. He's directing a lot of the strategic moves that get made, for lack of a better term. He's steering the ship of 41. And I think that's clear to see for a lot of the viewers back at home. And Shan starts to try and plant seeds against Ricard quite early in the game. And this is the right move in my book, right? I think most people would agree. Like, yeah, if Shan wants to win, she can't sit at the end with Ricard. He has to go at some point and will probably be targeted by Ricard at some point in this game. So, yes, being the person to strike first makes plenty of sense. I don't have any issue with that sentiment. But she decided to start planting the seeds for a flip against Ricard at a point in the game when they both still needed each other. And that is something that led to ultimately the demise of her game. And this is something that I think we see a whole lot of in Survivor. This is something that I think a lot of people get very anxious about. The idea of like, I'm working with this person, but because I'm working with them, they're going to come after me at some point. So I want to go after them first. But then they lose sight of the idea that they still need that person in the game to get where they want to go. And they start this war against an ally too early. And that ally is then the person who can turn around and say, you see how she's flipping? You see how she's trying to turn it around on me? You think she's not going to do that to everybody else here? She's got to go. And everyone's like, oh my God, Shan's flipping on her ally. Oh, she can't be trusted as an ally now. Of course she has to go. And it was actually a tight vote for Shan. I mean, it was 3-3-2, I think. Liana and Erica both getting votes in that. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. And then on the revote, it was unanimous against Shan. But she ended up being the 11th person voted out of her season because they get to final 8 and Ricard catches on to what Shan's been trying to do and get him out. And this is a point in the game where Shan desperately needs Ricard to still be her ally to get through another round or two. And that is a perfect example of the right move and your head being in the right place, but acting upon it too early and failing in the execution and having that grenade that you were trying to throw at somebody else's feet blow up in your face. And those are the kind of moves that I'm trying to look at over the course of this episode. Let's look at another one a bit older, outside the new era. One of my all-time favorite seasons, Second Chances Cambodia. When Kelly Wigglesworth decides to blindside Andrew Savage, who hopefully me and Fair Play could maybe get on the show and talk a little bit about 50. But this is, again, a move that I think is in the right place. I mean, this is Kelly Wentworth. I think I said Wigglesworth, excuse me. This is a move that I think most people would say is a fine move in a vacuum. I mean, you have a classic underdog type player in Kelly going after a strong male personality and frankly leader whenever he plays in Andrew Savage. And you get a big power player out of the game. And you kind of maybe too early again start to wipe away this underdog label that you've gotten and this underdog perception that you have. The issue, though, is that a swap comes not too long after that, and Kelly's left with virtually no allies, is left isolated in the game because of this huge move that gets made. And I often wonder, had she waited until merge, could she have actually gained more numbers and been able to swing more people with a big blind side on somebody like Savage and recruit them into her army so that she could get deeper in the game with numbers? Making a move at this time, and then obviously you can't anticipate a tribe swap. Not totally true. You kind of can. But then you've taken out somebody that a lot of people saw as one of, if not their strongest ally, and then you get swapped away from anybody that you were working with, and you're left out, no pun intended, on an island, and it becomes very difficult to navigate yourself through the rest of the game. And we see Kelly go home that season. And I think that was kind of the beginning of the end for her. A totally fine move to want to go after Andrew Savage in Cambodia, but just far too early for me. Let's keep moving through some of these examples here. I got one more, and then I'm going to break down some more of this, and then we can hit some more examples. Again, if you have any examples of a player that made a fine move, but just made it at the wrong time, go ahead, drop it in the chat, and we can talk about it. So here's a good one that I also think is pretty fun, right? Ellie going through Gabler's bag in Survivor 43, returning to the new era. I mean, like, going through someone's bag, I have no issue with, right? There's nothing wrong with that. You get some info. You get to then figure out some information on somebody that you can then share with other members of your tribe and be like, hey, I went through his bag and I found this and I found that. And even if it's true or not, just going up to somebody and telling them that you did that is a moment of trust building. But it's literally day 3, right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure she does that on day 3. And Gabler finds out, as we all know, and the consequence of that is not just creating an an enemy that you now have an irreparable relationship with, but everyone's looking at you like you're going through bags on day 3. Oh my God, why? And I choose this example, A, because it's fun. Who doesn't love a little bit of bag snooping? But I also choose this because it is emblematic of a consistent problem that we see with the new Survivor players. And it's moving like that in the pre-merge. The idea of pre-merge control, it's kind of a trap. And I'm not saying that it's always a bad thing. Or rather, I'm not saying that it can't be a good thing. But it is often something that is unnecessary. And this is somebody saying that who had like as much pregame control, or excuse me, as much pre-merge control as somebody could possibly have. I had the majority alliance on Tuku. I found the first idol on Tuku. I got out my number 1 target right away. And, you know, you get 10, 15 more days into the game, and all of a sudden that pre-merge control doesn't really mean anything anymore. But people get so antsy to get out there and to play and to put a target on somebody else and to form alliances and to make a move. But it's like, it doesn't matter if you come into the merge as the out and out de facto leader and best player on your pre-merge tribe, or if you come out as that person's number 2 or number 3 option. There's still so much game left to play and so many votes left to cast that your standing in the pre-merge will be pretty much irrelevant by the time you get 1 or 2 votes into the merge, because then everything will change. Everything will change. It always does. And the last thing you want to be is an early merge target. The last thing you want to be is somebody that obviously A, gets voted out pre-merge. That's the worst case scenario. But B, be somebody that does make it to the merge, but has done so much in the pre-merge that everyone's like, hey, we need a name. And you're a very easy name for people to throw out. It's a terrible position to find yourself in. Just terrible. And that is something that you see every single season. You get to the cagiest part of the game, which was the merge, is now mergatory. And everybody just wants a name. And if you can be one of those people that folks are coming to asking for a name versus being the name that's thrown out, like, obviously, that's where you want to be. But folks aren't thinking about that often when they hit that island. They're thinking about all the different things they wanted to do, all the energy and adrenaline that they have. They want to go out there and they want to play as hard as they possibly can from day one. And you're never going to see me fronting on somebody for keeping their foot on the gas. There's nothing wrong with that. But, like, there is no resume to be built in the pre-merge. Again, no pun intended, but the pre-merge is about survival. Do whatever you can to make it to the merge. For some people, that's a lot smoother. It's forming a strong alliance that sticks together until you get to the merge part of the game. For other people, it's like just doing whatever they can to stay alive. But there is no resume building. There are no big moves unless it's life or death that you should be making in the pre-merge. And Ellie going through Gabler's bag is one of many, many examples that we could pull from that fit into that category. And oftentimes when you're sitting in the pre-merge, the only thing you should be thinking about is, how can I get through to the next round if you have to go to tribal council? And how will I be set up for the round after that? Especially nowadays in the new era, we see so many tribes just stack tribal councils early on. If you're one of those first tribes to go to tribal, you're probably going to go again. It's very rare that you see tribals evenly dispersed throughout a new era pre-merge, 47 being one of those exceptions. But you should be thinking, okay, how can I get through this round that I have to face tonight? And how can I get through it in a way that will set me up for success if we have to go again? But we see so many players try and do so much as soon as they get out there that they either are a pre-merge victim themselves, or they get to that merge stage of the game, or now mergatory, and everyone's like, hey, you want someone to vote out? This person has been a pain in my ass, running around the island, trying to blindside people, going through my bag, searching for idols. Like, I have no issue if they go. And on top of all of that, once you hit that mergatory stage of the game, and everyone's looking for a name to get thrown out there, you don't want to be the person that people on your original tribe are okay offering up as a sacrificial lamb. Because nobody really wants to give up a member of their original tribe, right? Once you hit mergatory, like, those are the people that you've been playing with. Those are the people you know. Those are the people that you've been working with and you have genuine trust with, hopefully by going to tribal and people voting the way they say they're going to vote. And one of the last places you want to be is someone saying like, hey, we'll offer up a Tuku. We'll offer up a member of our tribe. Let's take this guy out. It's never where you want to be. And the easiest way to find yourself in that position is making big moves far too early. Let's take a look at a game changers example of this. Brad Culpepper, when he decides to cut Ty. Ty's unpredictable. He's got advantages in his pocket. You can understand why somebody would want to get rid of Ty in game changers, right? It makes sense. But the issue with it was that it was too close to final tribal council. This here is an example of someone making a good move, but making it too late. Ty was beatable in game changers. I don't know if he was winning that game if he's sitting at the end. And not only does he take a very beatable Ty out of the game for pretty valid reasons, but this late in the game, I think Brad Culpepper lacked the awareness of what the jury makeup was going to be and what the jury's perception of him was at the time and what their perception of other players around him was. And so what does Culpepper do? He decides to take Troyzan to the end, who, yes, was also never going to win that game, but also, let's be honest, probably would have voted for Culpepper in the end. I might go as far to say would have definitely voted for Culpepper in the end. So he takes out somebody that he could have beat at Final Tribal Council, and in the process of doing that, loses a jury vote in the end that who knows could have swung the game his way. And not only is it a vote, but that's somebody you're sending back to Ponderosa who's going to plead your case for you before Final Tribal Council even starts. He had a misread, Culpepper, of endgame threat level. Ty wasn't winning that game. And cutting him late was a tactical decision, getting these advantages out of the game and getting a wild card player out of the game. You never really knew what he was going to do, especially that late. But it had a strategic blindness to it that hold on one sec, folks. Having some technical difficulties here in the studio that I got to go check out. We'll be right back. And we are back. Sorry about that. Had some technical difficulties in the studio, but picking up where we left off, if you're just joining us, as you can see in the title of tonight's episode. Right move, wrong timing. We're breaking down all the different times throughout Survivor that people had tactically sound moves, but made them too early or too late, and it ended up being their demise in the game. The one we were talking about before I had to step away was Brad Culpepper deciding to vote out Ty because he was a very unpredictable player in the game, and he had all these advantages and idols in his pocket, but this was somebody that wasn't going to win. And he decided to bring Troyzan along, which was probably a jury vote for Brad Culpepper had Troyzan been sitting on the jury. Would have been an advocate for him at Ponderosa heading into Final Tribal Council. And he opted to make, in a vacuum, a perfectly fine move, but made it too late and ended up making it more difficult for him, Brad Culpepper, to actually go and win the game. Again, drop in the chat any examples you're thinking of that might fit this mold of players that made good moves but made them a bit too late or a bit too early. Right move, wrong time. Ooh, another great example here, right? Jay in Millennials versus Gen X saves himself with an idol, plays an idol correctly, flips the momentum of the game. But then in the next vote, he decides to immediately go for a second strike and make a flashy move, but he doesn't have the safety net that idol provided him. He gets voted out very quickly after that because he tries to outmaneuver David a little too quickly. And look, his instincts were good. He makes a good idol play, but he mistimed that second strike. And you have to wonder if he had waited a vote and let all the remaining players in the game cannibalize himself just a little bit more, could he have snuck through? And could he have made an even deeper run into the game? I'm not totally sure, but I have to imagine that he would have been better positioned if he decided to just chill a little bit after he played that idol. While we're talking about this tonight, please be sure to subscribe to the Reality After Show YouTube channel. Give me a follow over on Twitter or on Instagram at Gabe Ortiz. Stay up to date with all the cool stuff that we're doing over here. And I understand where a lot of these folks are coming from, particularly the ones who want to make a big move too early. Because when you are actually out there, all you have to trust is your gut. This isn't a hot take, but when you're watching at home, you know everything that's going on. You know everybody who's lying, you know who they're lying to, you know what they're lying about. But when you're out there on Survivor, you never know when you're walking into Tribal if this is going to be your last one. And everybody wants to go out swinging. Everybody wants to be able to make the moves they want to make and play the game they want to play. And being able to exhibit that patience is one of the best attributes that you can have as a survivor. Being able to say, I really want to do this. I think I have the numbers. I think I have the right read on the room. I think I'm going to be able to manage the fallout of it after I do it, where oftentimes people are wrong. But being able to say it's not the right time, not quite yet. But that's a balance, because not only do you need to have the patience to say it's not the right time, not yet, you also need to have the awareness to say this is the right time, because once that moment passes, you'll likely never get it back. And that is just brutal. You might never get it back, A, because you might get voted out of the game before you get the opportunity to make that move. Or B, you might lose the setup that you had that made that move even possible in the first place. So having the balance of that patience and awareness to know it's not time yet, it's not time yet. Let me bide my time here. But then saying this is the time to strike because I'm right on the edge of where it's not possible anymore. And that is a devastating place to find yourself if you misjudge one way or the other. Let's look at game changers. Again, revisiting this. Andrea, when she starts to recognize the threat that Zeke is in the game, and she also recognizes that Zeke is starting to make meaningful connections with a lot of her allies. And she wants to cut him at final 11, I think it is, right? But she pushes a little too early. And what makes this move so devastating for Andrea is that Zeke wasn't even really targeting Andrea at the time. That was not somebody on Zeke's radar. And she could have operated in this game bookmarking the fact that Zeke was playing a game that was very dangerous to hers. But knowing maybe it's not quite time to do this. And once Zeke learns that he's become a target for Andrea, he panics and flips against her. And then bridges get burned that actually hurts both of their games. And look, the read by Andrea was right. Zeke was a threat and was specifically a threat to her game and the plans that she was trying to build. But she made that known to the rest of the cast too early. And she ended up starting a war that she wasn't quite ready to win. And that's not because she was incapable. It's because the game wasn't in a place where she was set up to win that war quite yet. So the move itself, I have no issue with. Yeah. Allies that you had worked on forming were starting to float towards Zeke. He was a threat to your long-term plans. But he wasn't actively targeting you. And creating an enemy, a direct enemy out of him at that time, was much more detrimental to her game than simply allowing the waters, the tide rather, to come in and out and wait to see where it was going to rest. Here's an interesting example, one I'm very familiar with. Thank you, Elena. Genevieve getting out Saul. Was this a good move too early? So this one is very interesting because Saul at the time and Genevieve's pitch for Saul, this was Genevieve's pitch for Saul, was that nobody's talking about him, right? He's everybody's best friend. Nobody's even talked about him being a big social threat. No one's even thrown his name out as a potential guy that could be voted out. He's completely under the radar while also being very loud and charismatic. Yeah, that is somebody that you should be looking to get out of Survivor. The question, though, was this move made too early? Now, no doubt about it, and I know this better than anybody. Genevieve's threat level was sky high after she made that move against Saul. 100%. And yet she was able to navigate through the rest of the game with that high threat level. So I just wonder how much her game would have changed had she opted to not get Saul out. And it's why my gut tells me I don't put it in this category of right move, wrong timing. Because Genevieve wasn't voted out at Final 5 because she voted out Saul at Final 10. Genevieve was voted out at Final 5 because she voted out Saul at Final 10 and because she put together Operation Italy alongside Sam and Andy. And because she had blindsided Teeny twice throughout the game. And because she was coming off an immunity win when Andy got voted out. So, like, for a lot of these moves that we've been breaking down over the course of this episode, I feel like you can draw a pretty direct correlation between the move that got made at the wrong time and that person's game falling apart. Where for this one, Genevieve taking out Saw at 10, while I do agree it was a big move that was made early, I don't know if that was the main driver of Genevieve going home, and she did. I feel like it was the first of many things that got stacked up over the course of her time in Fiji that led to her getting voted out. And I think it was probably the most inconsequential of all of those moves and instances that led to Genevieve being Genevieve that we know, this powerhouse of a player. Looking at 46, Tevin deciding to flip on Soda. This is a great example of right move, wrong time. The reasoning for why Tevin decided that he wanted to go after Soda, I totally agreed with. He has a great confessional where he's like, Soda likes to talk, 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 talk. I love that confession. And he's right. Soda was a big talker. Soda was somebody that liked to try and move in between alliances a lot, or at least rather gather information from a lot of different alliances. And she loved to talk, 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 talk. And that's a very dangerous person to be allied with, even if they're not going against you, which Soda was not at the time. Soda was adamantly in Tevin's camp. But yes, that is a dangerous kind of ally to have. And it's somebody that you should probably be looking to get out before you get too deep in the game and all of that talking blows up in your face. But what happened after Tevin got Soda out? At the very next tribal, Q says that he wants to quit, and this huge live tribal breaks out. Nobody really knows what they're going to do. And the most recent move on everybody's mind is Tevin flipped on his number one ally, Soda. And Tevin ends up going home immediately after. And that makes total sense to me. And you have to wonder how different that live tribal would have been for Tevin had he not A, put the target on his back by taking out his number one ally, but also B, had somebody that was protecting him in a live tribal like that. Had somebody that if Tevin's name came up said, no, we shouldn't vote out Tevin. We should vote out somebody else. How valuable would that have been to Tevin in that moment? Something that I was thinking about for days after that episode. And there's a moment in 47, one of the first times I talked to Sue, where I say, look, you can go and you can watch this. It makes the episode. Where I say, look, there are going to be moments where everybody's whispering to each other at tribal, where everybody's running around like chickens with their head cut off. And when that happens, I got you. I got you. I got you. I got you. And my impetus for saying that was that Tevin vote, was that Tevin tribal council. Because I saw what happened to him and I thought, oh my God, if only he had somebody protecting him during that live tribal. And that's what I wanted to have with Sue, was that if my name came up, I wanted somebody that wasn't me to say, we're not doing that. And she did many, many times. If Sue wasn't in that game, I probably leave far earlier than I did. And a perfect example of a perfectly fine move. There were a laundry list of reasons for Tevin to think about getting rid of Soda, but just did it way too early. And so that right there is where I stand on right move, wrong timing in the game of Survivor. And there are so many more examples that we could go through. Here's even another one. Dom putting Wendell in fire when he should have been trying to take him out sooner. Great shot there by Daryl. Giving Wendell a little bit of a boost going into Final Tribal Council. And not really realizing how important it would have been to get Wendell out before fire. So when you're lining up these moves, you need to A, make sure that you can read the room properly. Be able to predict how people are going to react when you approach them with your idea or your plan of what you want to do. 2, obviously, make sure you got the numbers. Make sure that all your ducks are in a row and that your logistics are going to work out, that the numbers go the way they should. And 3, most importantly and most difficult, be able to anticipate and manage the fallout from whatever big move you're trying to make. If you can do those 3 things, your move will probably go pretty well. The timing triangle, if you will. But a big issue that a lot of people have is that they don't have a great read of the room. They don't have the numbers and the move just doesn't even happen. And most often, they aren't able to manage the fallout because they didn't have a good read on what that fallout was going to be. They thought it was going to go one way and it went another way. And if they had waited a couple more rounds, or if they had moved a few rounds earlier, maybe the fallout wouldn't have been as extreme, or at least would have been more manageable for a lot of the players that we've talked about over the course of tonight's episode. And man, oh man, do a lot of people. And hey, I'll tell you what, you can even use me as a case study for this. I should have flipped on Atuku earlier. I should have flipped on Caroline, and God forgive me, don't strike me down for saying this, I probably could have flipped on Sue as well. And because I always knew that was a move I was probably going to have to make at some point, but kept biding my time and waiting to make it because I got so comfortable in the security that that alliance gave me, it got to the point where it was like, there's too many Tukus. We have to take one of them out. Kyle goes and wins immunity. I'm the next best option. And I end up going out at 9. Had I offered up a Tuku myself in that round instead of going after Genevieve, or had I taken one out before we even got to that place, who knows if there's as big of a target on our back, and more importantly, my back, because of it. I didn't move as early as I should have. I thought it was something I had more time to do later, when that time didn't really exist for me. And that was a big mistake. And that was, I had the right move in my head, but my timing was all wrong. And it resulted in me going out. We'll be back next week, 7:15 p.m. Should be back on the Tuesday schedule again. Wasn't able to be here last night. Had to push it to Wednesday. Thankfully, the supreme leader of the Reality After Show, Johnny Fairplay Dalton, gave me some grace and let me do it tonight. We should have a cool interview as well, me and Johnny, coming up at some point in the next couple of weeks that I'm very excited about. I hinted at it earlier if you were here earlier in the episode. I think I mentioned it. But stay tuned to see what that's going to be. Very excited for that. And 49, right around the corner. About a month and a half until 49's here, and we'll be doing our recap shows alongside Johnny and Bobby once again, which is going to be a really good time. And Gabe's Big Move will continue to thrive during the season of 49, and then obviously 50 coming up not too long after that. So really exciting stuff. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Apologies for the technical difficulties in the middle of the show if you were here for that. Really, really awesome stuff. Thank you for all the comments. Knox Too Tall, to Elena, Johnny, always in the chat. Love to have him there. God bless Sue. Yes, God bless Sue. God bless America. Daryl, thank you so much as well. Daryl Seymour for coming in as always. Elena, like I said, Knox Too Tall. Appreciate all you guys being active in the chat. We'll be back next week, everybody.